The rain on the alien planet didn't fall like Earth's. It shimmered, silver droplets dancing through the green mist, glowing faintly as they touched the broken ground. Lieutenant Mason Walker stood alone under that strange rain, his helmet cracked, his armor scarred, and his heart heavy. The war between humans and the Valari Empire had ended 3 days ago, but the silence after war was worse than the battle itself. It was too quiet, too empty, too unreal. Mason had lost too many friends to call it victory. The peace treaty was a hollow thing signed in the ruins of cities that would never rise again. Still, Command sent him here, to the Valari homeworld, with a simple order. Find the remaining human prisoners and bring them home. But as his dropship left orbit and he stepped into the alien dust, he felt something else, something watching him. Something ancient. He walked through the wasteland where giant towers of glass and bone rose like dead trees. The ground pulsed faintly under his boots, as if the planet itself still lived and breathed. The Valari were strange, elegant beings, tall, silver-skinned with 4 eyes that could see emotion as color. They were proud and fierce, but their pride had cost them dearly. Humanity had fought them for decades, and both sides had bled oceans. Now Mason, a tired soldier from a small blue world, was walking into the very heart of their empire, alone. The coordinates led him toward the palace, a structure that looked less like a building and more like a cathedral grown out of crystal. The air grew colder as he entered, his footsteps echoing in long, empty corridors. Every surface reflected, his face back at him, tired eyes, unshaven jaw, and the reflection of a man who'd seen too much death to believe in glory anymore. He expected to find guards. He expected to be stopped. But no one came. The corridors were silent, the doors open, as if the palace was waiting for him. He didn't know what scared him more, the thought of walking into a trap, or the thought that maybe he wasn't. As he entered the throne room, his breath caught. The chamber was vast, a dome of shining crystal that reached high into the green sky above. Streams of light fell through cracks in the ceiling, landing on the figure sitting at the far end. She was not like the other Valari he had seen in battles or on the screens, the Queen. She sat on a throne that seemed to float in the air, her body surrounded by threads of golden light. Her eyes, 4 of them, glowed with a deep, soft fire. Her hair, white as frost, moved as though it were alive. She wore no crown because she didn't need one. Her presence alone filled the air like gravity. For a long moment, neither moved. Mason kept his rifle lowered but ready, his finger near the trigger. The Queen only stared at him, her gaze unreadable. Then something happened that froze him where he stood. The Queen slowly rose from her throne. Her guards, tall, silver warriors with long spears, stiffened in confusion. She took 1 step down, then another. And then, before Mason could even speak, she knelt, her head bowed low, her golden hands pressed against the ground in front of her. Mason blinked, his heart racing. What are you doing?" he whispered, his voice shaking. Behind her, the guards looked terrified. One of them dropped his weapon and fell to his knees. Another followed. Within seconds, the entire royal court was bowing to him. To him, a single human soldier in battered armor. Mason took a step back, panic rising in his chest. This has to be a mistake," he said, his voice echoing weakly. "I'm no one." But the Queen lifted her head slightly, and when she spoke, her voice was soft and trembling, not with fear but reverence. "You carry the mark," she said. Mason frowned. "The what?" "The light," she whispered. "The first fire. It burns within you." He had no idea what she was talking about. He had no marks on him except the scars of war. He looked down at his armor, covered in scratches and blood, and saw nothing special. "I'm just a soldier," he said. "A human, nothing more." The Queen looked up at him then, and for the first time he saw tears in those glowing eyes. "You do not remember," she said softly. "You have forgotten what you are." Mason swallowed hard. His throat was dry. "What I am?" The reason we live, she said. The reason we learn to speak, to build, to dream. The first of your kind came to us when we were still crawling through the dust. You gave us fire and knowledge and hope. And when you vanished from the stars, we mourned the loss of the first flame. We thought you were gods, but now... She looked up at him again, voice breaking. Now you stand before me, flesh and blood. The fire returned. Mason couldn't breathe. His chest tightened as the truth, or whatever she believed, pressed into his mind. He wanted to tell her she was wrong, that humans weren't gods, that he was just a man who'd seen too many deaths and too many lies. But something deep inside him trembled, because a small part of him, a buried, ancient part, recognized the words. Not in memory, but in feeling, in some forgotten instinct that whispered from the bones. The air around them shimmered. The queen slowly stood, her golden cloak glowing faintly. She looked at him as if he was a sunrise after endless night. Mason felt small, lost. But in her eyes, he was something more, something older. He lowered his weapon completely. I don't understand, he said quietly. Why me? The queen gave a faint smile, not of joy, but of sorrow and awe. Because you carry what was lost, she said. And when the fire returns, even the stars must kneel. Silence fell again. Only the rain, glowing silver beyond the broken walls, kept falling. Slow, gentle, eternal. Mason didn't know it yet, but that single moment, the kneeling of an alien queen before a tired human soldier, would change the course of the galaxy forever. And deep in his chest, where fear once lived, a strange warmth began to stir. It felt like light. It felt like fire. The silence after the queen's words felt heavy, like the air itself was holding its breath. Mason stood frozen, his hands trembling around his rifle. He wasn't sure if what just happened was real or a trick of his mind. The queen, ruler of the most powerful alien empire in the galaxy, had bowed before him, and not just her. The entire court had fallen to their knees, whispering strange words in a language he couldn't understand. He wanted to shout, to demand an explanation, but all that came out was a rough whisper. Why? Why are you doing this? The queen rose slowly, her golden cloak falling around her like liquid light. Her eyes glowed faintly, and when she spoke, her voice was calm, but carried the weight of ages. Because we have waited for your kind to return, she said. And you are the first. Mason shook his head. Waited? For me? That doesn't make sense. I'm not anyone special. I'm just a soldier. She smiled sadly, as if she had heard that same denial 1,000 times before. Every flame begins small, she whispered, but the light it carries never dies. Her guards stood at the edges of the great chamber, still kneeling, still afraid to raise their heads. Mason could feel their fear, their awe, their confusion, emotions too strong to be faked. Finally, the queen motioned for him to follow. Come, she said softly. There are things you must see, things that belong to your kind. Mason hesitated but followed. His boots echoed against the crystal floor as she led him through long, curving halls. The walls were covered with carvings, thousands of them, strange symbols and shapes that glowed faintly under the blue light. As they walked, Mason saw images that made his heart race. Figures, not alien but human, carved into the walls. Humans standing tall, holding torches of light, surrounded by Valari kneeling in worship. He stopped. His voice was barely a whisper. That's us. The queen turned to him, her expression unreadable. Yes, these carvings are older than my empire, older than our stars. They tell the story of when your kind came to us in the age before we had wings or wisdom. Mason stared at the carvings, ancient, beautiful, almost alive. Humans teaching the Valari to build, to forge, to write. humans leading them through storms and darkness. Humans leaving, rising into the sky as the Valari wept. He reached out and touched the wall. The stone was cold, but it seemed to hum under his hand, like it recognized him. "I don't understand," he said quietly. "We're not that old. Humanity didn't even have space travel a few hundred years ago." The Queen's gaze softened. "Time moves differently among the stars," she said. "Empires rise and fall, and history forgets. But we remember. You were our beginning." Mason felt dizzy. It couldn't be true. Humanity, ancient teachers of an alien race. It sounded impossible. And yet, the carvings, the way she looked at him, the strange glow in her eyes, it didn't feel like a lie. They entered another chamber, smaller, circular, with a glowing pool in the center. The water shimmered like liquid light, and within it floated fragments of old metal. A broken helmet, a piece of armor, a scorched flag with a faint earth symbol barely visible. Mason stepped closer. The metal looked human. It even had serial markings in English. His eyes widened. This is ours," he whispered. "Yes," the Queen said softly. "The remains of those who came before you. The first fire." She walked to the edge of the pool and knelt beside it, dipping her hand into the light. "They came when our world was still young. They taught us to shape stone and use the stars. They gave us hope. But one day the fire faded. The sky burned and your kind vanished. Some say you died. Others say you ascended." She looked up at him then, her voice trembling. "And for 1,000 generations we waited for the fire to return." Mason stared at the water, his mind spinning. He thought of Earth, polluted, divided, struggling. Humans were far from gods. They were messy, emotional, fragile. And yet, here was proof that once somehow humans had touched the stars before, and left a mark deep enough to be remembered by another species. He swallowed hard. "If this is true," he said, "then we failed you. We didn't even know you existed." The Queen stood, her golden light reflecting on the water. "You didn't fail," she said. "You returned. That is enough." He didn't know what to say. His heart ached with confusion and guilt for a past he never lived. Finally, he asked, "Why did you kneel?" The Queen's eyes shimmered. "Because it is written," she said. "When the fire returns, the Queen must kneel before it to honor the ones who gave us life. It is not just a sign of respect. It is a promise that we will never raise our hands against you again." Her words struck deep. Mason thought of the war, the billions lost on both sides. So much pain, so much hatred. And now this. He stepped back, shaking his head. "All this fighting, all the death. And you think it was a war between teacher and student?" The Queen closed her eyes, and for a moment the power in her voice broke. "Yes," she whispered. "A war born of forgetting. We forgot who you were, and you forgot what you carried." The room went quiet again. Only the soft hum of the glowing pool filled the air. Mason's voice was soft when he finally spoke. "And what is it that I carry?" The Queen stepped closer, her eyes glowing brighter now, reflecting the light of the pool. "The spark," she said. "The same light that once burned in your ancestors. The power to create, to destroy, to dream. We call it the first fire, the power that shapes worlds." Mason looked down at his hands, scarred and shaking. "You think I have that?" "I don't think," she said. "I see it." She reached out, her hand hovering near his chest, and then he felt it, a faint warmth under his skin like a heartbeat made of light. It pulsed once, twice, and the air around him shimmered faintly. He gasped, stepping back. What is that?" The Queen bowed her head. "Proof," she whispered. "The fire never died. It only slept." Mason couldn't find words. His chest burned softly, but it didn't hurt. It felt alive, like something ancient and powerful was stirring inside him, waiting to wake. He looked up at the Queen, his eyes wide and uncertain. "What do you want from me?" The Queen smiled, and a sad, gentle smile that carried both hope and fear. "Not what I want," she said. "What the galaxy needs. The fire is awake again, and every world will feel it. Some will worship you. Others will fear you. But all will know. Humanity has returned. Mason stood in silence, staring at the glowing pool. The reflection staring back at him didn't look like just a soldier anymore. It looked like something more. Something older. He didn't believe in destiny, but in that moment, under the light of alien stars and ancient memories, he felt it, deep in his bones, a promise waiting to be fulfilled. The next morning, the alien palace felt different. The endless halls that once shimmered with cold beauty now seemed to breathe softly with light. Everywhere Mason went, Valeri guards stepped aside and lowered their heads. Their glowing eyes followed him, not with anger but with reverence. He hated it. He wasn't a god. He wasn't a savior. He was just a tired soldier trying to find the last of his people. Yet everywhere he looked, they treated him like something holy. The queen had ordered that he be given a chamber of honor, a room made of white crystal that caught the sunrise in 1,000 shades. He didn't touch the bed. He didn't sleep much. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw their faces, the humans he'd lost in the war. His friends, his brothers, his commander who died shouting orders while fire rained from the sky. How could someone like him carry anything sacred? When the queen entered his room, Mason didn't turn around. He stood by the window watching the distant mountains glow under the alien sun. "You haven't eaten," she said softly. Her voice was calm, almost gentle. "I'm not hungry," he muttered. There was a long silence. Then she said, "The fire disturbs you." He turned slowly, his eyes tired. "You keep calling it that, the fire. You say it's in me, but I don't feel like some kind of chosen one." "I feel broken." The queen stepped closer. Her golden robes whispered against the floor. "The fire does not choose the perfect," she said. "It chooses those who have known pain, for only they can carry its light without being consumed." Her words sank deep into him. He looked down at his hands, the same hands that had held a rifle, that had buried friends in alien soil, that had been covered in blood and ash. "Maybe it's better if it stayed asleep," he said quietly. "Every time humans wake something powerful, we end up destroying ourselves." The queen didn't argue. She only looked at him, her 4 eyes filled with something between sorrow and hope. "The fire is not meant to destroy," she said, "but creation and destruction are brothers. One cannot exist without the other." Mason exhaled, feeling the weight in his chest grow heavier. "Then what do you want from me?" "I want you to remember," she said. "Remember what?" "Who you are, who you were, who you could be again." Later that day, she took him deep beneath the palace, into a place even her guards feared to go. The air grew colder, the light dimmer, until the path opened into a cavern filled with statues of ancient humans. They were tall, proud, with eyes carved from crystal that glowed faintly. "This is the hall of the first fire," the queen said. Her voice echoed softly. "Our ancestors built it in memory of those who gave us the gift of thought." Mason walked slowly among the statues, his hand brushing the cold stone. The carvings were impossibly detailed. The curve of the jaw, the way each figure held something burning in their hands. "How long ago?" he asked. "No one knows," she said. "Our oldest records speak of it as myth. But myths are just truths too great for time to hold." He stopped before one statue, a tall man holding a sphere of light in both hands. The face looked familiar. Not exactly, but enough to make his heart skip. Something inside his chest pulsed again. That same faint warmth, like a heartbeat made of light. The statues around him shimmered faintly, reacting to his presence. The queen watched, her voice barely a whisper. "They feel you." Mason stepped back, fear flickering in his eyes. "No, I don't want this. I didn't ask for this." "The fire never asks," the queen said gently. "It only calls." He turned to her, anger breaking through his confusion. "And what happens when others find out? You think your enemies will just kneel too?" "No, they'll come for me. They'll come for Earth. This will start another war." The queen looked at him for a long time. "They will come," she said softly, "but not because of hatred. Because of fear. The fire burns away all shadows, even the ones hiding in hearts." Mason clenched his fists. He didn't want to be a symbol. He didn't want to be worshipped. He just wanted to go home. "Take me to the prisoners," he said finally. "That's what I came for." The queen's expression changed slightly, sadness clouding her eyes. "There are no prisoners, Mason Walker." He froze. "What?" She lowered her head. "There were. Once." But when word of your arrival reached us, some of my generals feared it was a trick, a weapon disguised as a man. They acted without my command. Mason's blood ran cold. You mean they're dead? She nodded slowly. I am sorry. He turned away, his heart twisting with rage and grief. His breath came out in sharp, shaking bursts. You're sorry? He said bitterly. Do you have any idea how many of my people died because of this war? And now you're telling me the ones I came to save are gone? The queen didn't defend herself. She only bowed her head, the golden light around her dimming. If it eases your heart, know that those responsible were punished. Their lives were given to the fire. That doesn't bring my people back, he said quietly. No, she agreed, but perhaps it can bring something else, an ending. Mason looked up sharply. An ending? Yes, she said. To the war, to the hatred, to the endless circle of blood. The fire's return can heal more than my people. It can bring balance to all. He didn't answer. He just stared at the faint glow in his chest reflected on the crystal walls. He didn't want to believe her. But deep inside, he could feel it. The energy that pulsed within him wasn't just light. It was alive. It was watching. That night he stood alone on the palace balcony looking at the alien stars. He thought of Earth, of his mother's face, the smell of rain, the sound of waves hitting the coast. He thought of all the people who had died believing humanity was small, fragile, temporary. Maybe they had been wrong. Maybe there was something ancient buried inside every human, something waiting to wake. The queen came to stand beside him. For a while neither spoke. Then she said softly, You fear what you are becoming. I don't want to become anything, Mason said. I just want to live. She turned her gaze to the stars. Then live, Flamebearer. But know this, your light will draw both darkness and dawn. You cannot hide what burns. Her words echoed in the wind. Mason looked down at his hands again. They glowed faintly in the starlight, warm, alive, and frighteningly beautiful. He didn't feel ready. He didn't feel strong. But for the first time, he didn't feel alone. The universe was watching and waiting. And somewhere in the depths of his heart, a voice older than memory whispered softly, The fire has returned. The next few days passed in uneasy silence. The palace that once buzzed with life now felt like a place of ghosts. The Valari walked softly in the halls, whispering prayers. He stepped forward and placed his hand on the door. The symbols flared, and suddenly the world dissolved into light. He was standing in a vast golden chamber that stretched into infinity. All around him floated holograms, recordings from long ago, humans speaking in languages he didn't understand, and at the center stood a massive figure, a machine, shaped like a human but made of living metal. Its eyes glowed faintly. When it spoke, its voice was ancient and tired. Human signal detected. Flame signature confirmed. Welcome, last bearer. Mason took a step back. What are you? I am Archivist 09, caretaker of the Kindler's legacy, the machine said. For 10,000 cycles, we waited for one of your kind to awaken. Why? To finish what you began, it said. Or to destroy what remains. Mason's pulse quickened. What do you mean? The machine's eyes flickered, projecting images into the air. Galaxies burning. Fleets of human ships fighting one another. Worlds reduced to ash. The fire was never meant for war, the archivist said. But humans. We could not resist. We gave light to others, but we did not learn to master our own darkness. Mason stared at the burning stars. And now I carry that same fire. Yes, the archivist said. You are the last echo of our mistake, but also our only chance for redemption. The chamber began to shake. The light grew unstable. The archivist looked at him one final time. Others will come. They will seek the fire. If they take it, the cycle will begin again. You must choose, bearer, to guard the flame or end it. And then the vision vanished. Mason found himself back in the vault, the queen beside him. She was holding his arm, her face filled with worry. Mason, are you all right? He looked at her, his voice heavy with sorrow. They destroyed themselves, he whispered. And now it's my turn to choose, and if I'll save the galaxy, or burn it. That night, as the stars shone above the quiet city, Mason stood alone again on the balcony. The golden glow beneath his skin pulsed softly like a heartbeat. He thought about the archivist's words, about the humans who came before. About the fire that could build or destroy. The queen joined him silently. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Then she said quietly, "What will you do?" Mason looked at her, his eyes glowing faintly in the moonlight. "I don't know yet," he said, "but I know one thing." "What's that?" she asked. "I'm not afraid anymore." The queen smiled, a soft, tired smile full of hope. "Then whatever you choose, it will be the right one." Mason looked at the stars, an ancient, endless waiting, and somewhere out there, in the dark he could feel it, the stirring of something vast, something that had been waiting for humanity to rise again. The fire inside him flickered gently, and he whispered almost to himself, "Maybe it's time for the galaxy to remember who we were." The stars burned brighter that night. The whole galaxy seemed to be holding its breath. Rumors of the human fire-bearer had spread across 1,000 worlds, the man who carried the ancient flame of the kindlers. Some called him a savior, others called him a weapon. But Mason didn't feel like either. He felt like a man standing at the edge of a great storm, trying to decide whether to step into it or stop it forever. The queen stood beside him on the balcony, her golden eyes reflecting the twin moons. She had removed her armor. Tonight she looked not like a ruler but like a friend. "You have been quiet," she said softly. Mason nodded. "I keep thinking about what that machine said, that I have to choose. If I release the fire, it could bring back everything humanity lost. But it could also destroy everything again." The queen looked at him, calm and steady. "The power itself is not evil, Mason. It's what you choose to do with it." He sighed. "And if I choose wrong?" "Then the galaxy will burn," she said simply. "But it will burn knowing a human dared to care." Her words struck something deep inside him. He didn't want this power. He didn't want to be some ancient echo of gods or monsters. He just wanted to be human, to make his own choice. The next morning, the sky changed. A great shadow fell across the planet. Massive ships, black and silver, descended from orbit. Their design was unmistakably human, ancient, forgotten. The Queen's generals ran through the hall shouting warnings. "Unknown fleet approaching. Energy signatures are off the scale." Mason and the Queen hurried to the observation deck. From there they saw the largest ship, a colossal shape miles long with glowing golden lines across its hull. It looked like something out of his dreams. Then a deep voice echoed across the city, projected from the ship itself. "To the one who carries the fire, we have come for you." Mason froze. "Humans," he whispered. "They're still alive?" The Queen looked at him, or what's left of them. Moments later, a beam of light descended from the ship, touching down in the courtyard. From it stepped figures, tall, armored, glowing faintly with the same golden light Mason carried. The lead figure removed his helmet. His face was pale, his eyes shining like molten suns. He smiled. "At last one of our blood has awakened. Who are you?" Mason asked, his heart pounding. "I am Commander Aaron of the Flame Guard, the last keepers of the Kindler legacy," the man said proudly. "We have waited eons for this day." "For me?" "Yes," Aaron said. "You are the true successor. The fire within you is pure, untouched by corruption. With it, we can restore the dominion of humanity. We can reclaim the stars." Mason frowned. "Reclaim? You mean rule again?" Aaron's smile widened. "Of course. It is our destiny. The lesser species have wandered long enough in darkness. The galaxy was ours once. It will be again." The Queen stepped forward, her voice sharp. "And how many will burn for your destiny?" Aaron looked at her coldly. "As many as it takes." Mason's stomach twisted. He looked at the man, at what humanity had become. And suddenly the vision from the archivist made sense. This was the same hunger, the same arrogance that had destroyed everything before. "No," Mason said quietly. Aaron turned toward him. "What did you say?" "I said no," Mason repeated louder this time. "If that's what humanity became, then maybe it should stay gone." The air grew cold. The soldiers behind Aaron raised their weapons. The Queen's guards did the same. Aaron's voice darkened. "You would betray your own kind for them?" Mason's voice shook, but he stood firm. "I'm not betraying my kind. I'm saving what's left of it." The air trembled as Aaron raised his hand. "Then you are no Kindler. You are a heretic," light flared. The ground exploded as energy bolts shot across the courtyard. The Queen's guards fell back, firing wildly. Mason grabbed the Queen and pulled her behind a pillar as explosions shook the palace. Aaron's voice boomed through the chaos. "You cannot hide, bearer."
"The fire belongs to us."
Mason clenched his fists. The golden glow under his skin flared brighter, hotter. He could feel the fire answering the call of battle. But this time he didn't fear it. He looked at the queen, her face streaked with dust and light. "You told me to believe in what I fight for," he said. She nodded once. "Then believe now." Mason stepped out into the open courtyard. His eyes burned like suns. "Orin!" he shouted. The commander turned, his face twisted in anger. Mason raised his hand and the fire burst forth. Not as a weapon, but as light. A wave of golden brilliance spread across the courtyard, disarming the soldiers, melting their weapons without burning them. Orin screamed in fury, raising his own power, dark corrupted flame that twisted the air around him. The two forces clashed, light and shadow colliding with the roar of stars. The city shook. Towers cracked. The queen shielded her people as the sky itself split with energy. Mason could feel his strength fading, but he refused to stop. "This isn't who we are," he shouted. "We weren't made to conquer, we were made to protect," Aaron roared, pushing harder, his power overwhelming. "You are weak!" Mason closed his eyes, tears burning down his cheeks. "Then I'll be weak, but I'll be human." And with that, he released everything. The fire exploded from him in a blinding storm of gold, wrapping around the courtyard, the ships, the entire sky. It burned away the corruption, the pride, the hatred, and then it began to fade. When the light cleared, Aaron was gone. The ships had vanished, their presence erased like smoke in wind. Mason collapsed to his knees, the glow in his chest fading to a soft ember. The queen ran to him, kneeling beside him. "Mason, stay with me!" He looked at her weakly, smiling faintly. "It's done, the fire. It's free now. You released it?" she whispered. He nodded slowly. "Not to destroy. To give to all of them. To everyone who can still feel hope." She touched his hand, tears shining in her golden eyes. "You gave the galaxy its light again," he smiled faintly. "No, I just reminded them how to find it." When the dawn came, the sky was brighter than ever before. Across the galaxy, strange lights appeared, tiny golden sparks falling like rain onto countless worlds. On every planet, someone looked up and felt something new. Courage, compassion, love. The fire had returned not as a weapon but as a gift. In the palace courtyard, the queen stood alone beside a quiet monument of stone. Mason's armor rested upon it, the golden glow now still. She whispered softly. He was not a god. He was not a conqueror. He was a man who chose kindness over power. Then she looked up at the rising suns and smiled through her tears. The human flame lives on, and far away, somewhere among the stars, a small spark of light drifted through the void. Warm, steady, alive. It flickered once, as if in a heartbeat, and a voice, faint but familiar, whispered into the cosmos. "We are human. We endure."